Hello, this is Sculpt January number 21, and this time the theme was ancient. So I decided to go for a castle on a rocky cliff. I'm getting the basic shapes as usual, and I'm using the Sculpt tool plugin to add them together. This time I'm checking carefully that they've added together properly, and what I should have done with the topology, which was a bit poor of me, I had a subdivided cube at the base, but the other things I hadn't subdivided, and I think it's a good idea to have similar topology when you're adding stuff together, just because it doesn't distort so much when you change it to the dyne topo, and you might lose your shape a little bit. So I'm just using the snake hook tool on a low level of detail. This is when you can go really low with your detail level and you don't have to worry at all about the quality at this stage. You're just getting the basic shape. I must admit that I'm getting pretty tired now. Just not that I'm not enjoying it, but I'm just absolutely shattered a lot of the time, and it's sort of taking its toll a little bit on me. I'm probably spending a bit too long on them really. This one was a bit quicker though. It was about 2 hours 15 minutes, and that's including the texturing, so I'm really pleased that I managed to get down the time taken just a bit. Of course, doing the videos is obviously taking a little while as well. One piece of advice I would give about trying to keep motivated is actually down to diet and exercise. Make sure you're getting away from the computer enough and doing exercise. That's really important to me, so I get away from the computer and do that bit of exercise. And don't eat too much sugar. I know it sounds strange, but energy drinks, they're full of sugar and caffeine, and it may give you a boost for a while, but the next day you'll really struggle. So actually, energy drinks are probably a bad idea for a challenge that's going to last a month. At this stage it's looking a bit bobbly, in the sense that it just looks like some sort of creature with lumps on its back. And later on I think about the composition a bit more and try and move that hill or cliff around a little to give it some less of a symmetrical look. I was having a few problems here with the mesh overlapping, so when I was pushing the inside out it would overlap the outside edge, and you have to be very careful of that. That can cause lots of problems later on, especially when you're trying to bake textures out. For this workflow I'm still at a very low detail level, and what I want to do is take it across into a multi-resolution modifier once I'm happy with the general shape. It's still quite a high poly count for a low poly start though, so before taking it into the multi-resolution modifier I had to decimate it. In fact, I used the Remesh tool in the Sculpt tool add-on. The Remesh tool seemed pretty good actually, because it left quite an even mesh, which was really good when going across to the multi-resolution modifier. So you can see most of my time is still at this base level of detail. And the main tools that I'm using are the pinch brush and the snake hook tool to get the main mesh. Now I'm flattening out the base of the model because I'm going to delete a lot of that mesh so it doesn't take up space on my texture maps, and so my computer, when I put it over to the high resolution, hasn't got so many polys. This is the Remesh tool within inside the Sculpt tools add-on, and you can see it's left a little bit of bad topology which I'm going in and tidying up, and you can see where they're overlapping each other or hitting each other. I actually cut a bit out with the grease cut tool there, and I'm just going around the model making sure it's got even topology, and like I said, deleting all the mesh from the base because it's not needed. And then I go into my multi-resolution modifier and I subdivide. I actually go to 5 million faces, and I'm surprised my computer was happy with that, but it was whilst recording at the same time. I've got a GTX 980. Like I say, I would like to improve that, but can't really justify the cost at the moment. I get a tiny bit of freelance work, but not a great deal. And I do get a small amount from this YouTube channel, which is nice. But again, it's not quite enough to buy lots of new kit. So you can see the multi-resolution modifier doing the job. I'm able to go in and edit fairly freely. Every now and again saying apply base, that moves your base mesh around in case you've moved the topology far from what it used to be. But if you are using the multi-resolution modifier, you should be fairly comfortable with your base shape. I'm just doing the steps, and of course I'm using some rock texture brushes that I got from textures.com. Hopefully I'll remember to put that in the description. Please remind me if I don't. I've got lots of different texture brushes, and I'm kind of getting used to which ones to use when. Some I use for changing the actual shape a bit more, and others I use for adding a bit of detail. I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. I feel like I'm getting better all the time, and it's been really useful, this challenge, for improving my skills. I feel like in terms of the future of games development and game art especially, having artistic skills and sculpting skills like this are going to be really important. At the moment, both art skills and technical skills are really necessary, but as computers get better and better, I imagine it's going to be more artistic skills and creative skills that are going to be vital. I've got a displacement map of a brick wall, an old brick wall, and I'm just using that to pull out the mesh a bit. I'm not going to really fine detail here, and that's something that I've learnt as well, is when you've got bigger models like this and you're sculpting the whole thing, when to know when the detail isn't going to be seen. So I don't need to go to super high detail. You can see I'm pulling around the rock shape a bit more now as well, just to make sure I'm happy with the composition, and then tidying up the castle at the top. And here's that error that I was talking about earlier that I didn't notice that the remesh modifier left. So it is really important to go around checking your mesh and seeing if there's any issues. Luckily it's only a small part, so it shouldn't be too noticeable. And now I'm just sorting out the finer details, going in and making sure I'm happy with all the rocks, putting the matte cap on at this point. The computer seems comfortable with it, so I was happy to use it. Occasionally that can cause more lag. I took out the baking process because it's a bit dull, but I thought I'd put in my texturing. I used the noise texture this time for the base colour of the rocks, and then use my ambient and occlusion as kind of a multiply and mix on top of that. I'm still experimenting a lot with the node setup, and I'm still not sure I'm completely happy. Perhaps the next challenge I'm going to do is something like a texturing challenge, I think. And you can see all the sort of iterations I've gone through figuring out which looks the best. I tend to take the cavity map into the roughness node on the PBR shader, so it just gives it that difference in reflective quality. And I thought I'd do something interesting with the lighting setup, just because it's got a little cave at the bottom and highlight the top area. So there is number 21, Ancient. And thank you again to everybody that's commenting and keeping me going throughout the challenge. Links are all in the description. And get along to the Facebook group. I'll see you there.